The homepage of Complete Mathematics gives me an overview of what I've been doing recently, new resources that have been added, and upcoming events where I can get my free tickets. The backbone of the system is our mastery curriculum, going from early number all the way through to calculus. Each unit in the system is made up of big ideas. These big ideas are then scaffolded to learning that idea. These granular steps build up to understanding the mathematical idea. Diving into one of these granules, we can see the support materials. Each granule has an overview, some metadata, and then prerequisites and dependents, showing us what mathematical ideas have to be secure before teaching this idea and where this idea moves to in future. We also have suitable materials. These can be activities, worksheets, hooks, videos, and so on. Example questions, showing us the type of questions we can ask pupils to see whether or not they're gripping the idea. Pedagogical advice, ideas and research and evidence for teaching this idea. Every granule is supported in this way, and where there are relevant research papers, we link to those too. Key misconceptions, so we can go into the lesson thinking what might go wrong and mitigate against that. Key learning points, which are like lesson objectives, and I can statements, which pupils see in their system. And the key vocab for this particular lesson. Again, the pupils see this in their system. So every granule is supported in this way, building up the entire curriculum, which means for each class I can quickly build a scheme of work and plan lessons. My timetable shows me my upcoming lessons, which I can then plan. Because each class has its own scheme of work, I simply choose the mathematics from their scheme. The system tracks what the pupils are learning and recommends what they're ready to learn next. Once added, I have all of the support materials, my prerequisites, resources, example questions, pedagogical notes, misconceptions, key learning points, ICANNs, and vocab. And now I have some additional sections. I can add notes to my lesson. And my summary starts to build up each of the elements I'm putting into my lesson. I can add in homework. Choose the date for pupils to have access to the activity, and the date when they must hand it in. If I want to, I can add some notes, and choose whether or not they see the answers. When the lesson is being taught, I can click the assessment page, and as I'm hearing key moments, seeing pupils' work, I can make my teacher judgment as to how confident they are on the piece of mathematics. When the pupils get home, they can also judge themselves. This builds up into a profile of your pupils. In addition to teacher assessment, I can add in regular low-stakes quizzes. Because the system tracks what the pupils are doing, I can simply ask the system to test the pupils on the work they've done recently. The system goes back and finds those lessons. Now that we have the list of lessons they were in, I simply give the quiz a name and choose the duration. And the quiz is added to my summary. As the pupils complete their quiz, we have a real-time RAG analysis, and each pupil is awarded a maths age. This metric can be changed, for example to GCSE grade or Nat 5. Each individual quiz contributes to the overall mark book, where we have a history of all the quizzes the pupils take. Switching on the analytics, we can see some information about how the class is performing in strands of mathematics and how certain pupils are doing on their papers. We also have a section, Suggested Areas for Improvement. These areas tell us as teachers where our teaching hasn't been impactful enough. These are some areas we might wish to look at again and think about the way in which we delivered them. And we can see how the class is progressing against the scheme of work. I can also see progression against the scheme of work in my class view, as I see the steps the class has been taking over a period of time. In addition to quizzes, we can also build tests. These might be diagnostic tests, GCSE papers, Nat 5s. To create a GCSE paper, for example, simply choose the tier, the strands of mathematics we want to have on the paper, how long we want the paper to be, give the paper a name, and choose which classes you wish to assign the paper to. Choose the date from which they can see the paper and the date that they must hand it in. Simple as that. And we have an overview of the tests we've assigned in our assessments page. When a pupil logs into the system, they can also see the lessons they have coming up. Find out what the lesson is about, see the criteria they're supposed to meet, some example questions, and any activities or assignments that have been given by their teacher, which they can upload, write reflections on, or speak to the teacher about. Every piece of work that the pupil does goes into their learning diary, so that over time, all of their reflections and ideas and thinking and every piece of work they've ever completed or handed in stays with them. When pupils are given assignments, they appear on their assignments page, seeing the ones that are outstanding, the ones that are overdue, and the things they've handed in over time. As they do quizzes, their results are collated in a RAG analysis, allowing them to see how they're doing over time. Pupils can inspect certain quizzes in more detail and are given priority revision topics. This allows a pupil to dig into a question and see what they got right, what they got wrong. And if they're having problems with a question, the system serves up similar questions but now with full work solutions. Pupils can read the solutions and then try their question again. If they're still struggling, they can go to the Learn More page, and on the Learn More page the resources are much more detailed, with much fuller explanations, and videos teaching the pupil about the idea. By this stage, most pupils can then go back and address the question they got wrong. If they're still struggling, every single pupil in Complete Mathematics also has the whole of mathematics, so they can navigate backwards through the curriculum to look at the underpinning skills and knowledge that they need before looking at this idea. Just as teachers do, pupils have the whole of maths. Presented slightly differently, they can jump into units and explore the whole of mathematics for themselves, navigating down or up the curriculum. Another aspect of the pupil environment is the Times Tables app. A record is kept, and they can choose to quiz themselves. The Times Tables app has multiple representations, including intersections, grid values, arrays, area, and of course calculations.